So Alexander Usyk signed with Skills Challenge Promotions or Skills Challenge Management on Tuesday, I believe it was, Monday or Tuesday, whereby they've now basically said this signing has been done, number one, because he is a man of integrity and good moral and good standing, and Prince Khalid, and Amir Abdullah, and they all like Alexander Usyk and his team and want to work with him moving forward. And this basically has been done to make the Tyson Fury fight a possibility in December. I think it's a brilliant move signing to them. However, I also think that's a move that's primarily going to stop the Undisputed fight from happening now. Outside of Tyson Fury being afraid to fight Alexander Usyk, and I've already given my reasons as to why I say he's afraid, so don't talk to me about, no fighters are afraid of each other. I don't want to hear it. You guys know what I mean when I talk about fighters being afraid. Now, besides that, I also think he wants any and every possible advantage he can get in a fight with Alexander Usyk, knowing the level of danger that fight would be for him and how he would have to go into that fight and how that fight would look. We can all draw comparisons to the Steve Cunningham fight that took place back in, I believe it was 2014. And yeah, it didn't look good for him there. Usyk is about 4 or 5 levels above Steve Cunningham, so that is just a nightmare scenario for him. Someone that he finds very hard to pin down, very hard to hit clean, that you can't hit before they hit you. Someone that's just naturally faster, someone that's got a lot of volume and activity, movement, and it's just a nightmare scenario. So you want every single advantage you can get. So home field advantage, you want the crowd there to be a pro Fury crowd. Every time you land a jab or every time you hit him on the gloves, the crowd goes wild and rapturous, and the judges hear that, and okay, they take notice of that potentially. You want to be able to have a 15-minute ring walk 10 minutes after he's actually been in the ring, so he's now cold and getting colder, and you get to do what you do. You get to control everything. You get to have your name first on the banners. You get to turn up to the press conference late and say, well, it's my show, bitch. Like, either you love it or you'd hate it. You get to just do everything and dictate all terms. You want to be that clear A side, have all those advantages. Usyk going to Skills Challenge has now effectively made Tyson Fury a very firm B side. Because regardless of what Frank Warren, Dev Sani, and anyone else within that group wants to say, none of them, Bob Arum included, has the kind of money that the Saudis have to put on a fight like that. Therefore, whatever they're going to offer Tyson Fury will be probably 2 or 3 times more than what he could generate on this fight, like within the UK or the US, with his name going first. So he's basically got to go where that money is. None of those guys can compete if it was to go to, even though it can't be a purse bid type situation, but if it was to go to, a proportion like that, well, these two fighters cannot make anywhere near the same type of money as if those Saudis, open up their checkbook and decide how much we're going to throw at this fight. So Usyk has now become the firm A side. You have to dance to his tune. And the fact that Tyson Fury doesn't like to dance to anyone's tune but his own, he likes to always be in control, I don't think that he's going to be very willing to play ball and comply. I saw an interview today where Frank Warren basically said that Derek Chisora, the spokesperson for Skills Challenge, said they'll get 150 million for the fight. He said, if that's the case, I will sign for the fight and I will drag Tyson there myself. But listen to the verbiage, like, I will drag Tyson there. So it's not like, we'll happily take that. It's like, if that's the amount of money that's on the table, I'll make sure that he gets in the ring. That tells you that he don't want that fight unless it's on his terms. Hence why he's still trying to talk about this potential 70-30 fight at Wembley, knowing that the pot at Wembley is going to be maybe a fourth, maybe a third, at, if that's a little bit better, of the type of money that you'll get fighting in Saudi Arabia. Now, me personally, I would prefer the fight in the UK. Yes, because I would actually like to go to that fight. I doubt I'm gonna, spend the money to jump on a plane to Saudi and all that sort of stuff. But that being said, I want to see these guys being paid. As much as I don't particularly like Tyson Fury, I'm not going to block his blessings. If you get the chance to make 3 or 4 times more than you've ever made for a fight in your career, take that money. Same with Alexander Usyk. With the amount of sacrifices that he's made throughout his entire career, there is no one that can tell me that he doesn't deserve to get another massive payday, especially considering he's now about to fight Daniel Dubois for $6 million, which is about 4.9 million pounds. I'm not saying that's not chump change. Like, I'm sure he's more than happy to do that assignment, but the fact where you've probably got paid in excess of 25 million for the AJ rematch, bearing in mind probably got paid about 6 or 7 million for the first one. Yeah, he's only got what, maybe 3 or 4 fights left in him at this point in time. You've competed your whole life for the glory, for the victory. Now let's get a little bit more money in those coffers, and especially knowing someone like him, he's gonna do what he does for his country and whatever. It's not just about him, taking money for himself. He takes that money, sets up charity organizations, feed his country, try and get his country infrastructure back together, build on all that sort of stuff. So if that's the case, do the fight. So there's no reason for Tyson not to take the fight, but there's every reason now that fight won't happen, based on the fact of, we know Tyson Fury, he either wants to be just the square and firm underdog in a fight whereby he has no pressure on him, and that will get him up for the fight and he can perform at his absolute best. And if he's not the underdog, then he needs to be the overwhelming A-side and have everything to his tune, and he can pay someone 15 to 20% of what he's getting, because he just has to be earning like 3 or 4 times more than them, and that's very important for his psyche. It's a situation that I don't think is gonna sort of manifest itself positively, but I hope that they all see sense in this one. And I've been told that there's going to be an offer sent to Tyson Fury and Bob Arum and Frank Warren. It's going to be a big take it or leave it offer. If he does leave it, then I would just forget him moving forward. And that would be what I would suggest, because it's not going to get any better realistically. Another thing, I guess, actually let's touch on this topic as well, because this sort of ties in. So you had Mauricio Sulaiman coming out also the other day, basically saying that Tyson Fury is a victim of the perils of money in the heavyweight division. Like, he's willing and ready to fight anybody, and he can't get an opponent and blah blah blah. Now, I don't know if this is just a case of Mauricio Sulaiman backing his champion, or it is a case of that, but like the levels of disingenuousness, if we're gonna use that word, is crazy, because he's a victim of the perils of such and such, but yet almost every fight doesn't happen because he does something to ruin negotiations. Now, if we're saying that, they're saying that Andy Ruiz asked for 20 million for a Tyson Fury fight. Number one, Andy Ruiz's team said that's not true. We never asked for that kind of money. But if that's the case, they're also saying what Fury and Frank Warren are basically saying, because if he asks for that, they get 20% or 25%. So that's essentially like $100 million purse bid. So you can already see what their mindset is. It's not about, they want to make sure that whatever they're paying their opponent is 3 to 4 times less than what Tyson's earning, or what he's supposed to be earning in that fight. They're trying to get people on the cheap. And then even when you get a scenario of Frank Warren saying that, we offered Anthony Joshua 40%, whereas if he goes and becomes a mandatory challenger, he'll only get 20% of the pot. So, we're trying to offer him more money for a situation where he'll get less. Well, actually, no, he won't get less, because very well, in the WBC laws, this is in their in their laws. I can't remember which what subsection it is, but you can find it online. It's quite easy. You could Google it. It's quite clearly says their mandatory positions start from, I think it's 80-20 in favor of a champion, but it can raise to up to 45% if someone is an interim champion or holds significance within the WBC's rankings, if it's like interim or like a something like that, if a champion is coming off of injury or whatever. But it also says, and at our discretion we can mandate a challenger a 50-50 split should they hold an overwhelming commercial value in the sport of boxing or be of a very high standing within the sport. Basically, if someone is a big enough star, they can do a mandatory challenge at 50-50. The WBC know full well they will never sanction a fight with Anthony Joshua only offering him 20% of a pot, considering he's a former two-time unified heavyweight champion and still the undisputed cash cow of the division, with all the sponsorships that he has, all the revenue that he generates through his fights alone. Now, they may not do a 50-50 for him because we don't know what his pulling power is like totally at this particular point in time, but they definitely know that if they offer him 20%, he won't take it. If he doesn't take 20%, then that means that the money for that particular fight will not be generated because he will not accept it. Therefore, the money for the next person after that goes down tremendously, which means what? It means their sanctioning fees, the 3% that they're supposed to get from the overall purse pot, is no longer there. So if you imagine you have a fight with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury worth about, let's say, for argument's sake, let's say 100 million, right? Fury's got 60 million, Joshua's got 40. Well, guess what? 3 million from both people will end up in the in the splits for the for the sanctioning body. The person challenging will have to pay the sanctioning fee or 3%, and then the person, obviously the champion, will have to pay the sanctioning fee as well. I believe they both have to pay it. One of them definitely has to. So either way, you telling me that the WBC are not gonna want that $3 to $6 million, really? Whereas they're gonna do 80-20, and then you have Tyson Fury say, if it's worth the same amount of money, 80 million, and Joshua only getting 20, and you think he's going to accept that? No, he's not. The next person after him is Frank Sanchez. Frank Sanchez, realistically, I don't think he's made more than 1.5 in a fight, if even he's made that. So you're looking at maybe £1 million there. Tyson, if Tyson says that he wants like, if it's a split, then you're gonna have to offer him you're gonna have to actually overpay him several times to get him in the ring to give Tyson the 20 million that he's probably gonna want. Right? So you're gonna have to actually give him closer to 5 million. And at that point, that sanctioning fee becomes 250,000. Do you really think that you're gonna take that over the big 3 to 6 million that you could get? So therefore, they'll mandate that fight at a much fairer split to make sure that Anthony Joshua gets, takes it and gets them more money, gets them more prestige and notoriety. So, yeah, again, so as I was saying, Frank Warren's being very disingenuous when it comes to that, because he knows wholeheartedly that they would never mandate Anthony Joshua at a 20% split for that title. It just won't happen. Got a bit off track there, but ultimately, yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with regards to Usyk, Fury. I don't think it makes it easier. I think it makes it harder, just because Fury ultimately wants to be the number one guy. But I can hope to be wrong. Let's move on to one last thing and then let's get out of here. Okay, last but not least. So you've obviously had Mauricio Sulaiman again speaking about how he will not sanction any Russian or Belarusian fighters to fight for WBC championships. Ultimately, he will not allow Dmitry Bivol to face either Canelo at 168 for Undisputed or Artur Beterbiev at 175, unless he goes through a process whereby he can denounce his Russian status and go in under, I guess, the representation of his mother, who is Korean, or his father, who is Tajikistanian. But then the implications of him denouncing publicly his Russian nationality probably wouldn't do him much favors within that, you know, realm and hemisphere of the world. So maybe you might say that's probably not you know, a smart play, unless you're never planning on going back there. And even then, if you've got family over there, that makes it very difficult for them in that country or surrounding countries, knowing that someone has just publicly, you know, denounced the country to the world like that. So I don't see that happening. But Bob Arum has now also come out and basically said he is not willing to do a fight with Dmitry Bivol for Artur Beterbiev or anything like that, because he supports the WBC stance and he will be going by their guidelines. This all bearing in mind that his champion, the WBC champion, while having a Canadian citizenship, is a natural born Russian. Whereas Dmitry Bivol was not actually born in Russia. Artur was not born in Russia, so Artur Beterbiev actually was. So all of that, huge contradictions. But this is now clearly where now I'm not blaming Artur Beterbiev, but this is actually now a supreme duck in that situation. Yes, he's got another fight to worry about, and he could quite well lose those titles to Callum Smith in August. I don't believe that's going to happen, but there's every possibility that could happen. However, it's clear that Bob Arum at this point is officially putting in, you know, the duck paperwork for him by way of a, you know, agreeing or publicly agreeing with a stance that he knows to be BS. Saying, oh well, we won't deal with him. It's the same what he did with the MTK and the Pro Bellum fighters. Oh well, yeah, no, I'm not going to talk or touch any of those guys because of the supposed DK connections. But yet a lot of those, some of them actually had belts. Some of them were supposed to be mandatories to your fighters. Some of them are actually people that could have caused your fighters problems. So it was very convenient for you to now not want to deal with these people that had, you know, those affiliations, and you'll move your people in a different direction just to avoid them and avoid all the controversy. It's a clear duck. And unfortunately, Beterbiev has to take some of that blame. I mean, I understand it's not him saying it. I understand he, you know, he likes belts and he wants more belts. He's from a part of the world where the belts is what matters to them. But to go along with that, unless he was to publicly come out and say, no, I do not support what Bob said, and I will enforce my contract that you must get me the fights I require or I demand, or I leave, then yeah, that means that you're complicit in his words, which ultimately therefore means that you are a part of the duck tactics as well and the duck squad. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that one, because to be honest, it's nasty and I don't think I should. But yeah, ultimately it presents a bit of an issue for Dmitry Bivol at the moment as to what to do. He can't get the 175 undisputed. He doesn't like he's going to be able to get the 168 undisputed. Even though he's got a name that there's no one that's really out there for him to face that he's going to be able to get up for. There's only two fights. It was Canelo at 168. That was a challenge he wanted. Or it's Beterbiev at 175. To him, anything else is just spinning wheels and going along and just, you know, sort of going with the motion. And we don't get the absolute best out of Dmitry Bivol when he just goes through the motions. He needs to feel the challenge. And I don't know if we've got that at the moment. But unfortunate, we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what happens. And look, this has been an extremely long video, probably a lot longer than I was expecting it to be. It's always my fault. I love to talk, as you guys can tell, except for when I'm actually in front of people. I don't like to chat to people, but it's another story. Thank you very much for watching. As again, please like, subscribe, share, send this video to a friend, a colleague, and anyone else in between. I appreciate all the views and everything else, but for right now I will leave it there. That's the Hardcore Casual out.